Emily was only 8 years old, but she had already been through more struggles than most people faced in a lifetime. She was a cheerful girl by nature, always trying to make others smile even when she herself was in pain. The hospital had become her second home, with long days filled with treatments, nurses, and the quiet beeping of machines. Yet even in those rooms, Emily found a way to dream. She imagined herself running through fields, laughing with her friends, or visiting places she had only seen on television. More than anything else, she dreamed of seeing the Royal Guards in person. Whenever she felt tired or sad, she asked her father to play videos of the guards on his phone. She loved watching them stand perfectly still, their tall black hats and red uniforms shining in the sunlight. She thought they looked like heroes from a fairy tale, standing strong no matter what. For Emily, they were not just soldiers. They were symbols of courage and dignity. She would sometimes copy their stance, holding her little body as straight as possible, pretending she was also a guard protecting something important. Her parents would laugh softly, watching her raise her chin proudly, though the weight of her sickness still showed on her small frame. Her mother often whispered to her, "One day maybe we can take you to see them for real." Emily's eyes would brighten at the thought, and she would ask 100 questions. Do they ever smile? Do they get hot under their hats? Will they notice me if I wave? Her parents always reminded her that the guards did not move or talk while on duty, but Emily's hope was stronger than facts. She believed that if she could just stand in front of one of them, maybe, just maybe, something special would happen. After many weeks of hospital visits, her doctor suggested a short break before the next round of treatment. He told her parents that fresh air and happy moments were just as important for healing as medicine. That was when her father suggested a trip to the capital city. It wasn't far, and it would give Emily the chance to see the palace and the guards she admired so much. Her mother agreed, though she worried about Emily's strength. Still, they both knew how much this meant to their daughter, and they wanted to give her something beautiful to remember. Emily was so excited when she heard the plan that she couldn't sleep the night before. She gathered her crayons and glitter pens and started making a card. She wanted to thank the Royal Guards for standing so strong and giving her inspiration. On the front of the card, she drew a tall soldier with a black hat and a smiling face, something she had never actually seen in the real guards but imagined in her heart. She glued shiny stars all around the picture and wrote in big letters, "Thank you for being brave." Inside, she wrote her name and a little message, "You help me be strong." For Emily, this was her gift, and she held it close to her chest as if it were treasure. The next morning, they packed a small bag with her medicines, snacks, and a light jacket in case she got cold. Her parents reminded her not to get too tired and to rest whenever she needed. Emily promised she would, though her excitement made her forget her own weakness. As they drove toward the city, she pressed her face against the car window, her eyes wide with wonder at the tall buildings and busy streets. The closer they came to the palace, the faster her little heart beat. She kept asking, "How many guards will be there? Will I see their horses too? Can I stand close to the line?" Her parents smiled, answering as best as they could, though they were just as curious about what the day would bring. When they finally arrived, the palace gates stood tall and majestic. Crowds of tourists filled the area, cameras clicking and voices buzzing with excitement. But Emily hardly noticed the people. Her gaze went straight to the guards, standing perfectly still in their red uniforms and tall black hats. She clutched the card in her small hands, almost afraid it would blow away in the gentle breeze. For a moment she forgot about the hospital, the needles, and the heavy tiredness that often clouded her days. Here, in front of the palace, she felt like she was part of something grand and magical. Her parents guided her carefully through the crowd until they reached the rope line that separated the tourists from the guards. Emily stood on tiptoe, craning her neck to see more clearly. One guard in particular caught her attention. He was tall, his chin lifted high and his face calm and unreadable. Emily whispered to her mother, "That one. I want to give it to him." Her mother gently touched her shoulder, reminding her, "Sweetheart, remember what we said, they are not supposed to move." But Emily just nodded and kept her eyes fixed on the soldier. She stood there for a long time, holding the card up in her hands. The crowd around her shifted, some people noticing the small girl and the glittering card. A few whispered softly, touched by the sight of her determination. But Emily didn't notice them. She only saw the guard, standing straight and tall like the hero she had imagined in her dreams. Even though her arms grew tired, she refused to lower the card. Her heart was pounding, not from fear, but from hope. She thought to herself, maybe he will see me. Maybe he will understand. For Emily, this was not just about meeting a guard. It was about finding strength, about proving to herself that even the smallest person could share something meaningful with someone so strong. Her parents watched her quietly, their eyes moist, realizing how much this moment meant to their little girl. And so, as the palace bells rang in the background and tourists continued to take photos, Emily stood there, a fragile figure with a glowing smile, holding up her handmade card. She didn't know what would happen next, but deep inside her, she believed that dreams had a way of coming true if you held on long enough. The morning sun shone brightly over the capital city as Emily's family made their way through the bustling streets. The trip itself had already filled her with wonder. She kept pointing out every small detail from the car window: the double-decker buses, the old stone buildings, the statues of kings and queens from long ago. For her, everything looked magical, almost like the city had been painted just for her visit. She asked her father to slow down near the palace so she could see the tall golden gates that sparkled in the light. As the car stopped, her mother helped her out gently, making sure Emily's jacket was zipped up and that she wasn't too tired. Emily clutched her handmade card tightly. The glitter on it caught the sunlight and sparkled just like her wide, hopeful eyes. She was small among the crowd of tourists, but she carried herself with a kind of quiet determination that made her parents proud. They could see how much this moment meant to her, and though they worried about her energy, they decided to let her lead the way. The area outside the palace was busy with visitors from around the world. People were taking pictures. Children sat on their parents' shoulders, and everyone was craning their necks to catch a glimpse of the famous guards. But Emily didn't care about the cameras or the chatter. Her eyes were fixed on the red uniforms and tall black hats of the royal guards. To her, they didn't just look like soldiers. They looked like giants of courage, standing silently as if nothing in the world could move them. Her parents guided her through the crowd, weaving carefully until they reached the rope line where people usually stood to watch. Emily moved right to the front. The palace gates towered above her, and the guards stood like statues, perfectly still. She could see their shiny boots, their polished buttons, and the rifles they held so firmly. The sight took her breath away. She whispered softly, "They're real. They're really here." Emily pulled the card close to her chest again, then looked at one guard in particular. He was tall, his face calm, eyes staring straight ahead, and his posture flawless. Emily decided at once that this was the one she wanted to give her card to. Her mother bent down and reminded her gently, "Sweetheart, remember, they're not supposed to move or take things from people." But Emily just nodded without looking away. Her heart told her to try. The little girl slowly stepped closer to the rope line and stretched her arms out, holding the card toward the guard. Her hands trembled a little, not from fear but from excitement. She stood there quietly, waiting. The tourists nearby noticed the scene. Some whispered to each other, pointing out the small child with the glittering card. A few even smiled warmly, touched by her bravery. Yet Emily did not notice any of them. To her, the world had gone silent. It was just her, the card, and the guard. Minutes passed. The guard remained perfectly still as he was trained to do. His eyes were focused ahead, his body like stone. Emily's arms began to feel heavy, but she refused to lower them. She believed that if she held on long enough, something would happen. She thought about the many times she had been tired in the hospital, but kept smiling for the nurses and her parents. This was no different. She just had to be strong. Her father placed a hand on her shoulder, proud of her patience. He whispered, "You're doing amazing, Emily. Even if he doesn't take it, he knows you are here." Emily nodded but kept her focus. She didn't want to give up. She wanted to believe that somewhere behind that serious face the guard could feel her hope. The longer she stood there, the more people around began to notice. A group of tourists lowered their cameras, watching quietly instead of snapping pictures. A mother explained softly to her son that the little girl was trying to give something special to the guard. The boy's eyes widened with understanding, and he whispered, "I hope he takes it." It was as if strangers had been pulled into Emily's story without even knowing her name. Emily lifted her card even higher, her small hands shining with glitter dust. Her eyes sparkled with both determination and innocence. For her, This was not just about handing over a card. It was about reaching out to someone she admired deeply, someone who represented strength at a time when she often felt weak. The crowd around her might not have known her story, but they could sense that something important was happening. Her mother, standing close, felt tears building in her eyes. She thought about how much Emily had gone through, the sleepless nights, the treatments, the endless waiting rooms. And yet here she was, standing in front of a palace, glowing with courage. She realized that her daughter's wish was so simple yet so powerful. All Emily wanted was to connect with someone she saw as a hero. The palace bells began to chime, their sound echoing across the courtyard. Emily didn't flinch. She was lost in the moment, her gaze fixed on the guard. She whispered softly under her breath, "Please see me. Please take it." The guard didn't move, but his eyes flickered for the briefest second. Emily caught it. Her heart leapt and she smiled even brighter, convinced that he had noticed her. Her father looked at his wife, both of them feeling a mix of pride and sadness. They knew the rules, knew the guard could not break protocol, but they also knew how much this meant to Emily. Still, they let her stand there, because even the act of trying was giving her a sense of strength she rarely felt these days. The crowd grew quieter. People who had been chatting moments before were now waiting to see what might happen. It was as if the entire palace square had paused for this one small child holding up a handmade card. The atmosphere felt heavier, filled with an unspoken hope that perhaps, just this once, something extraordinary might occur. Emily's arms trembled again, and her mother gently asked if she wanted to lower the card and rest. But Emily shook her head. She whispered, "Not yet." Her determination was stronger than her tiredness. She wanted to give the guard every chance to see her heart. The moment stretched on. The tourists, the bells, the shining palace behind her. It all became part of Emily's memory. No matter what happened, she would remember standing there with her card face to face with the hero she admired. And deep inside, she held on to the belief that magic sometimes lived in the smallest acts of bravery. Emily stood quietly at the rope line, her little arms stretched forward, holding the card she had made with so much love. The glitter sparkled in the sunlight, tiny flecks catching the breeze, making the card look like it was glowing. Around her, the sounds of the palace courtyard continued. People talking, camera shutters clicking, the faint sound of carriages rolling down the street. But for Emily, none of that mattered. She was focused only on the guard in front of her. The guard stood tall, his chin raised, his eyes fixed straight ahead. His uniform looked perfect, every button polished, his boots shining, his rifle held firmly in place. To anyone else, he looked the same as he always did, unmoving and unreadable. But for Emily, he was more than just a soldier at his post. He was the hero from her dreams, the person she believed could see her courage if only he looked closely enough. Minutes passed, and Emily's arms began to ache. She shifted her weight but refused to lower the card. Her parents, standing behind her, were quietly amazed at her patience. She was usually fragile, easily tired, but today she seemed to have a strength that surprised them. Her father whispered to his wife, "Look at her. She hasn't moved an inch. She's stronger than both of us." Her mother nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears. The guard, for his part, remained as still as stone, yet something inside him stirred. Out of the corner of his eye, he had already noticed the little girl holding up the handmade card. He could see the way her arms trembled, the way her face was lit with determination. He had stood at this post many times before, watched countless tourists wave, shout, or try to distract him. He had learned to ignore it all. But this was different. This wasn't a game or a prank. This was a child reaching out with pure sincerity. The tourists nearby also sensed it. A hush had fallen over the crowd around Emily. Where before there had been chatter and laughter, now there was quiet. People were waiting, curious to see if anything might happen. Some held their phones up to record, not wanting to miss the moment. Others simply watched, their expressions softening as they noticed the little girl's pale face, her scarf-covered head and the small card sparkling in her hands. Emily's mother gently bent down and whispered, "Sweetheart, it's okay if he doesn't move. You've already done something very brave." But Emily shook her head slightly, whispering back, "I think he sees me. I just have to wait." For the guard, the conflict grew stronger with each passing moment. He had been trained to follow the rules. Never break posture, never engage, no matter what. His role was to stand as a symbol of discipline and strength. Yet as he looked at the little girl out of the corner of his eye, he felt his heart ache. He thought about how small she was, how fragile she looked, and yet how strong her spirit seemed to be. She reminded him of his own younger sister, who used to run to him with little drawings and gifts when he first became a soldier. The silence stretched on. Emily's arms grew heavy again, and she lowered them for just a second before lifting the card back up, with even more determination. She whispered to herself, "Please, just take it." The tourists who heard her words felt their throats tighten. Many of them had no idea who she was or why she was there, but they could see how important this moment was to her. The guard's grip on his rifle tightened slightly, a tiny movement no one else might have noticed, but Emily did. Her eyes widened. She whispered, "He moved." Her heart raced with excitement. To her, it was proof that he had indeed seen her. She smiled brightly, her face glowing with joy despite the exhaustion that usually followed her everywhere. A young boy standing nearby tugged on his mother's hand and said, "Mom, I think he wants to take it." His mother put a finger to her lips, not wanting to disturb the scene, but she too hoped it might be true. Emily's parents exchanged a look. They didn't want their daughter to be disappointed, but they also couldn't deny the magic of the moment. Even if the guard never moved, Emily had already experienced something powerful. She had stood in front of her hero and shown her bravery. But deep down, they too hoped that maybe, just maybe, the guard would break his stillness. The guard's thoughts swirled inside his head. He knew the rules, but he also knew the weight of this child's gesture. He thought about the values of service and humanity, about how soldiers were not only meant to protect but also to inspire, and in that moment, he realized that sometimes the greatest strength was not in staying unshaken, but in bending for compassion. Emily lifted the card even higher, her small arms trembling with the effort. Her smile never faded, though her body shook slightly from the strain. She whispered again, "Please." The guard, standing in perfect formation, fought the urge to act. Yet something inside him grew louder, stronger than all the training, stronger than the rules. He couldn't ignore her anymore. He took a deep breath, hidden beneath the stillness of his posture, and prepared to make a choice that would surprise everyone watching. The crowd held its breath. Tourists leaned in closer. Phones were lifted higher. Emily's parents clutched each other's hands, knowing that whatever happened next, this moment would be etched in their hearts forever. Emily's eyes never left the guard's face. She believed with all her heart that he would not let her down, and though he still hadn't moved, she could feel something in the air, a quiet energy that told her something was about to change, and so, under the bright morning sun with hundreds of strangers watching, a silent exchange took place between a soldier bound by duty and a little girl bound by hope. Nothing had happened yet, but everyone could feel it. The moment was building toward something unforgettable.
The palace courtyard seemed to grow quieter, though the city around it was still alive with noise. The tourists waiting by the ropes leaned forward, their phones raised, their eyes fixed on the small girl who refused to lower her card. Emily's arms were trembling now, but she didn't stop. Her heart told her that something special was about to happen. She didn't know why she felt so sure, but she trusted the feeling deep inside. The guard stood as still as a statue, just as he was trained to do. His face showed no emotion, but inside, he was wrestling with himself. Every part of his training told him not to move. The rules were clear: never break formation, never respond to the crowd. He had done this countless times before, ignoring shouts, waves, even people trying to make him laugh. But today was different. This was not noise from the crowd. This was a child's plea, silent yet louder than anything else around him. His eyes flickered once more to the card, and then to Emily's small, pale face. He noticed the scarf covering her head, the way her parents stood protectively close, and the way the little girl's smile never faded despite the weight of her arms. He felt something stirred deep inside him, something stronger than duty compassion. He thought of his younger sister when she was little, how she used to hand him drawings she made just for him, how her eyes lit up when he accepted them. He thought about how fragile children could be, how quickly their lives could change. And in that moment, he knew he could not remain still. Very slowly, he shifted the rifle in his hands. It was the smallest movement, but it was enough to send a ripple through the crowd. Gasps rose from the tourists. Some raised their phones higher to record. Others placed their hands over their mouths in surprise. They all knew how rare it was for a royal guard to move outside of official ceremony. Emily's eyes widened. Her mouth fell open in amazement. She whispered, "He's moving." Her little voice carried a mix of wonder and joy, and her parents felt their hearts swell. They had come expecting nothing more than for Emily to see the guards from a distance. They had told her again and again that the guards could not move or take her card. But now, before their very eyes, one of them was breaking that rule. The guard took one firm step forward. His boots struck the ground with a sound that echoed in the silent square. The tourists gasped again, their cameras clicking rapidly. Emily's breath caught in her chest as she watched him lower his tall, proud frame closer to her level. His face remained calm and disciplined, but his eyes, though barely moving, seemed softer now. With his free hand, the guard reached out. Emily lifted her card higher with all the strength she had left. Her small hand shook as she placed it in his gloved palm. The moment their hands touched, just for an instant, the world seemed to stop. The sunlight glinted off the glitter on the card, and the guard held it carefully, as if it were the most important thing he had ever received. Emily's smile grew so wide it seemed to light up her whole face. She whispered, "Thank you," her voice barely above a breath, but it carried to those closest around her. Her parents were speechless. Her mother clutched her father's arm, tears rolling freely down her cheeks. Her father's eyes glistened as he pulled her closer, whispering, "She did it. She really did it." The tourists who had been recording lowered their phones for a moment, unable to stop themselves from clapping softly. Some wiped away tears. Others whispered to each other about how they had never seen anything like this. The crowd felt united in the presence of something extraordinary, something pure and heartwarming. The guard gave a small nod, barely noticeable, but enough for Emily to see. That single nod, so simple, yet so meaningful, told her everything. It said he had seen her, he respected her, and he was grateful for her gift. Emily nodded back, her tiny face glowing with pride. She felt strong, stronger than she had in months, because she had shared her heart and it had been accepted. The guard then straightened again, returning to his tall, still posture. He tucked the card carefully against his uniform, holding it as if it were now part of his duty. Though he said nothing, his action had spoken louder than any words ever could. He had broken protocol, not for fame, not for show, but for a little girl who needed a moment of kindness more than anything. Emily lowered her arms at last, her body tired, but her spirit soaring. She turned to her parents, her face glowing with joy. "He took it, Mommy. He really took it." Her mother knelt down and hugged her tightly, whispering, "Yes, my love, he did. You made it happen." Her father kissed the top of her head and whispered, "That's because you're brave, just like them." The tourists around them clapped again, and some even came forward to tell Emily how beautiful her card was. Strangers who had never met her before smiled warmly, touched by her courage and the guard's compassion. For a few precious minutes, the palace courtyard was not just a place for tourists. It had become the stage for a simple but powerful story of kindness, bravery, and humanity. The guard, now back in his position, remained silent. But inside he felt a warmth he hadn't felt in years. He thought of the child's smile, the card still glittering in his hand, and he knew that breaking the rule had been worth it. Some moments, he realized, were bigger than the uniform. Some moments required the heart to lead. Emily, now tired, leaned against her mother, still smiling. She whispered, "I'll never forget this day." Her parents nodded, knowing that this memory would stay with her forever. And so, beneath the shining sun, with hundreds of strangers as witnesses, a royal guard broke his silence and bent his duty not to weaken the tradition, but to honor the courage of a little girl who had fought her own battles, with more bravery than most could imagine. The moment was over quickly, but the feeling it left behind lingered in every heart that had seen it. It was proof that sometimes even the strictest rules can bend when touched by love and kindness. The moment passed quickly, but the memory of it stayed alive in the hearts of everyone who saw it. The guard had already returned to his still upright posture, but the image of him reaching down and taking the card from Emily would never be forgotten. For Emily, that small act felt like the biggest gift in the world. She held her mother's hand tightly, her face glowing with joy that seemed to erase, at least for a while, the heavy tiredness of her illness. Her father knelt down beside her and asked softly, "How do you feel, sweetheart?" Emily looked up at him, her eyes sparkling. "I feel strong, Daddy," she said with a smile. He saw me. He took my card. Those words carried more meaning than anyone could fully understand. For a child who had spent so much time fighting through pain, this one moment gave her something brighter to hold on to. Her mother kissed her cheek and whispered, "You were so brave, Emily. You made a soldier move with your courage." Emily giggled softly, whispering back, "I think he liked my card." Her parents laughed gently, and for the first time in many weeks, their laughter was free of worry. The tourists who had watched the scene unfold couldn't stop talking about it. Some came forward to tell Emily how proud they were of her. A woman from another country bent down and said, "I've been here many times, and I've never seen anything like this. You're very special." A young man showed Emily's father the video he had captured on his phone, saying, "This should be shared with the world. People need to see this." Within hours, the video began spreading across social media. Strangers who had no idea who Emily was were moved to tears as they watched the small girl holding out her card, the guard stepping forward to take it. Thousands of comments poured in, praising both the child's bravery and the guard's kindness. Words like heartwarming, unforgettable, and a lesson in humanity filled the online posts. Back at the hotel that evening, Emily sat on the bed with her parents and watched the video on her father's phone. She laughed softly, amazed that so many people were talking about her. "That's me," she exclaimed, pointing at the screen. Her parents nodded, smiling through tears. They could hardly believe how quickly the story had spread. Her mother stroked her hair gently and whispered, "See, Emily, you've touched so many hearts." The next day at the hospital, nurses and doctors gathered around to greet her. Many of them had already seen the video. One nurse leaned down and said, "You made all of us proud. Emily, you showed the whole world how strong you are." Emily blushed and whispered, "I just wanted to give him my card," to her. It had been such a simple act, but everyone else knew it was much more. It was a symbol of courage, hope, and kindness. As weeks passed, Emily kept the memory alive. She asked her father to print out a picture from the video, the one where the guard's hand was reaching for her card. She placed it beside her hospital bed right next to her favorite stuffed toy. Whenever she felt weak or tired, she looked at that picture and whispered to herself, "I can be strong too." It became her source of strength during difficult treatments. A reminder that even small acts could create big changes. The royal guard himself never spoke publicly about what happened. His name was not mentioned in the videos, and his face remained hidden under the tall black hat. Yet people everywhere praised him for his compassion. For him, the memory of that little girl's smile stayed locked in his heart. When he stood at his post in the days after, he did so with a new sense of purpose. He understood that his role was not only about discipline and duty, but also about inspiring others. Emily's parents often talked about how unexpected the trip had been. They had only wanted to give their daughter a chance to see the guards, not expecting anything more. Yet what happened had given their family a gift they could never repay. Her father said quietly one evening, "We thought we were giving her a memory, but instead the world gave her hope." Her mother nodded, whispering, and not just her. Everyone who saw it found hope too. Letters and small gifts began arriving at the hospital for Emily. People who had seen the video sent drawings, cards, and messages of encouragement. Some wrote, "You are stronger than any soldier," while others said, "You showed us what real bravery looks like." Emily read as many as she could, smiling at each one. She often told her parents, "I didn't mean to be famous. I just wanted him to see me." For Emily, the fame didn't matter. What mattered was that her hero had noticed her, had accepted her gift, and had shown kindness in return. That one moment gave her a kind of confidence that no medicine could provide. It reminded her that even though she was small and sick, she still had the power to touch people's lives. Her doctors noticed a change too. She faced her treatments with a brighter spirit, often telling the nurses, I can do this. I was brave at the palace, so I can be brave here too. The memory of that morning had become her shield, something she carried with her every single day. As time went on, the video continued to circulate. News programs shared it, calling it a beautiful act of kindness. Many people said it reminded them that rules and traditions were important, but humanity was even more important. Parents showed the video to their children, teachers shared it in classrooms, and people everywhere agreed that the little girl and the soldier had taught them a lesson about love and compassion. Emily never forgot that day. She often told the story to her friends in the hospital ward, describing every detail: the tall hat, the shining boots, the heavy rifle. And the moment the guard finally bent down to take her card, her friends listened with wide eyes, inspired by her courage. Some even began to make their own drawings and cards, saying maybe we can give ours to someone special too. Her parents cherished the memory as much as she did. Every time they looked at the picture on her bedside table, they were reminded that their daughter's strength came not only from medicine, but also from love, hope, and the kindness of strangers. The guard had given them a gift to a moment of light in a time of struggle. For the guard, the act remained private. He returned to his duties, silent and still, just as he had been trained. But every time he saw a child in the crowd, he thought of Emily. He thought of her smile, her glittering card, and her determination. And though he could never step forward again in the same way, he carried the memory with him as a reminder that sometimes bending the rules for compassion is the greatest duty of all. Years later, when Emily grew older, she would look back at that day as one of the most important moments of her life. She would tell people, "I met a royal guard, and he broke the rules for me." And every time she told the story, her eyes would sparkle, just as they had on that morning in front of the palace gates. The world may have seen it as just a short video, but for Emily, her family, and the guard, it was much more. It was proof that kindness can change everything, that even the smallest child can inspire the greatest acts, and that sometimes the strongest soldiers are the ones who know when to let their hearts lead. And so, the story lived on, not only in the glitter of a handmade card, not only in the nod of a silent soldier, but in the countless hearts that were touched by the courage of a little girl and the compassion of a guard who chose humanity over protocol.